from the Big Flim Studios in sunny Southern California, it's Big Flim's Pigskin Picks with your host, Lorenzo Big Flim Fleming. Hey folks, what's up? This is your host, Lorenzo Big Flim Fleming here. Finally, after several weeks and delays, we finally got our first podcast episode of Big Flim's Pigskin Picks College Football Edition here on Big Flim Radio and TV. Now, to kick off this debut episode, even though we're already in the week 6 of the college football season, I would like to start off with my home state college football team, the University of Georgia Bulldogs. Go Dogs! Those in the red and black, you know who you are. As we face our next test in the SEC, in the SEC East Division, against our foe, the University of Tennessee Volunteers. We played at Neyland Stadium there in Knoxville, Tennessee, aka Rocky Top. Yes, we know we'll see a whole lot of orange and white flying around Neyland Stadium, and of course, we'll be hearing that song Rocky Top throughout the game. But it will be the Volunteers who are going to be rocked up there at the Rocky Top as Georgia going to prevail over the Volunteers and remain undefeated at 5-0. In spite of the current legal situation that the University of Volunteers are dealing with, University of Tennessee Volunteers are dealing with one of their players who got arrested last weekend and the early part of this week, which probably be a major distraction for the football team as well as their coach, Jeremy Pruitt, who was a former Georgia offensive coordinator. So, with that being said, my pick is the Bulldogs, University of Georgia Bulldogs over the Tennessee Volunteers. Now, unlike the Big Flim Pigskin Picks NFL edition, the college football edition, we're just going to pick games, basically the ones that pique our interest, and as well as those of the fans. So we're not keeping stats of who won and who lost each week and keep a cumulative score as far as a win-loss record. So we're just doing it in fun and, like I say, enjoyment as well as conversation. And if you'd like to be a guest picker on Big Flim's Pigskin Picks College Football Edition, just shoot us an email or send us an audio clip to bigflimradiotv@gmail.com. Again, that's bigflimradiotv, one word, @gmail.com, and put in the subject line Big Flim's Pigskin Picks College Football Edition. Now, once we got that out of the way, now we're going to continue on with our picks. Now, the first game we're going to look at is the number 18 UCF, University of Central Florida, down in Orlando. They're 4-1 against the University of Cincinnati Bearcats, who are 3-1. We're going to pick the UCF Golden Knights over the Bearcats. And our next game we're going to look at is a Big Ten showdown between University of Maryland, the Terrapins, who are 2-2, versus Rutgers Scarlet Knights, who are 1-3. Like I say, of course, Rutgers has been struggling so far this season, but I'm going with Maryland on this one. And our next game, we have a Big 12 matchup between Texas Christian University, or TCU's, the Horned Frogs, versus the Iowa State Cyclones. TCU is 3-1, and Iowa State is 2-2. But we're going towards TCU over Iowa State. And our next game we're going to look at will be the number 6 Oklahoma Sooners, who are 4-0, versus Kansas, the Jayhawks, 2-3, also in the Big 12. And like I said, Kansas hasn't been doing too well. Well, they barely get by so far this season. But, of course, we're going with the Sooners on this one over the Jayhawks. Now, if it was basketball, then there'll be a different story, but we haven't gotten to college basketball yet. So, as of now, we're going to stick to the subject of college football, and my pick is the Oklahoma Sooners over Kansas. And, of course, all the Sooner fans out there, you know about their quarterback, who was a transfer from Alabama, who played against Georgia before Tua. I forgot his last name. It's a long name to pronounce, but otherwise, Tua took his job, and now he transferred. Jalen Hurts, that's his name. Okay, so as I said, we're going to pick Oklahoma, the Sooners, over the Jayhawks. Now, our next game we're going to look at is a Big Ten matchup between the Iowa Hawkeyes, which are 4-0, number 14 Iowa, that is, against number 19 Michigan, the Wolverines, the Maize and Blue. We played in the Big House, and they're 3-1. Right now, everything is like that. Everybody's getting nervous up there in Ann Arbor, especially Jim Harbaugh. Right now, he was a former Michigan quarterback, and plus, he had success coaching at Stanford. And then he translated that into the NFL where he was a coach at the 49ers, where he played in the Super Bowl against his brother, John Harbaugh, who was the current coach of the Baltimore Ravens. So after a couple of years of being an NFL coach, he decided to go back to the college reins and go to his alma mater, Michigan. But right now, Michigan's been kind of panicking lately, especially over that terrifying loss they had a couple of weeks ago. I forgot what team they played, but everybody thought they should have won. But who knows? Hopefully, Jim Harbaugh can turn it around and get themselves prepped up for the Ohio State Buckeyes, aka the Buckaroos. That's the team he hasn't beaten so far since coaching at Michigan, and that's the biggest barometer of his coaching tenure there at Michigan, if he can finally beat Ohio State. So when that game comes down the pike, we'll talk about more about that later. So for now, we're going to focus on Iowa and Michigan, and I picked Michigan to beat Iowa. Now, continue on. Our next game we're going to look at is number 12 Penn State, who are 4-0 from the Big Ten, versus another Big Ten school, Purdue. Purdue University, the Boilermakers. They're 1-3, and they're kind of struggling also. So I'm going ahead and give it to the Nittany Lions. They're playing in Happy Valley, and of course they're going to be a Happy Valley Saturday night when they beat up on Purdue. So it'll be Penn State over Purdue in that game. Well, folks, we're going to go ahead and take a quick break, and we'll be right back here on Big Flim's Pigskin Picks College Football Edition here on Big Flim Radio and TV.
Our mission is clear. Like lavender bath beads and a masseuse named Helga, we make you feel tingly all over. So close your eyes, breathe deeply, and chant after me. A 15-minute call could save me 15% or more on car insurance. Feel the tension melt away as you imagine life with smaller bills. To achieve this level of nirvana, call 1-800-947-AUTO. 1-800-947-AUTO. Think of us as aromatherapy for your wallet. Geico Direct. The sensible. Hi, you've reached Heineken USA. We're not in right now, but if you have a story you'd like to share with us, tell us. All right, beep's coming up. I stopped at a buddy's house this weekend, and when I walked in, he was vacuuming the floor with an old canister back. He's got the hose in one hand and a hiney in the other. When he turned to look at me, he hit the end of the retractable power cord, pulling it out of the electrical socket. The cord whipped around in the air like a snake. The plug hit him right between the eyes just as he had turned to look at me. He never saw it coming. It knocked him right on his butt. He didn't have the vacuum in hand, but he was still holding his Heineken. Never spilled a drop. My kind of man. Well, at least he has his priorities in order. If you want to share a story you've heard over Heineken, call 1-800-44-RED-STAR. The machine is always on. Talk to you later. Heineken USA, White Plains, New York, Canada.
Hi. I'm here today because I'm addicted.
Big Flim Radio and TV.
Get ready. You know.
Now that's an addiction, man.
Hey folks, welcome back. Let's continue on with Big Flim's Big Pigskin Picks College Edition here on Big Flim Radio and TV. Now, as we continue on, we're looking at a Big 12 matchup between number 1 Oklahoma State, the Cowboys, who are 4-1, versus Texas Tech, the Red Raiders out of Lubbock, Texas, who are 2-2. Well, I'm going where we're going for Oklahoma State in that matchup. Then our next pick will be the United States Military Academy, aka West Point, or for sports sake, Army, because that's the branch I served honorably for almost 21 years, versus Tulane. Both teams are 3-1, and the Black Knights is going to prevail over the Tulane Green Wave out of New Orleans. And go Army and all the cadets there at the United States Military Academy at West Point. And our next pick we're going to look at is an ACC matchup between Boston College, who is 3-2, against Louisville Cardinals, who are 2-2. Well, since Matt Ryan is a graduate of Boston College for the Atlanta Falcons. So I'll go with Boston College. And also Doug Flutie, the amazing Doug Flutie, who threw that Hail Mary against the University of Miami, the U, back in 1984. For those who weren't born, or like I say, just go on YouTube and you'll find that clip. So it's fun, So in any event, I'm picking Boston College over Louisville. Our next matchup we're going to look at is another ACC matchup between Virginia Tech, the Hokies. They're going on the road down to South Florida, Miami-Dade County, to play the before-mentioned University of Miami Hurricanes, or I will call them the Thunderstorm. Or for the locals, they call it the U. So right now, we're picking Virginia Tech to beat University of Miami in that one. For all my family members who live down in Miami, you know what's up. So we're not going to talk about that. But anyway, moving right along. Now we're going to go into another big matchup. We have the number 11 Texas, the Longhorns. They're 3-1 versus West Virginia, the Mountaineers. This game will be there in Morgantown. So they're going to be rocking and rolling there in Morgantown tomorrow night. But I think the Texas Longhorn is going to stampede through Morgantown and secure a victory over the West Virginia Mountaineer. Sorry, folks. But this is Big Flim's Pigskin Picks College Edition. But if you don't agree with my picks, it's all right. We're a free country. According to the First Amendment, you have a right to free speech and express your opinions in a normal, common way. So moving right along, we're going back to the Big 12 Conference again, where we have Baylor University, the Bears, there in Waco, or as I call some folks who live there, Waco, Texas. And also the alma mater for Chip Gaines. Yeah, Chip Gaines from, what's the name of that show? Fixer Up. Yeah, it's one of my favorite HGTV shows. So, and Joanna Gaines. That's what I'm trying to figure his wife's name, so I apologize. So that's their alma mater there. And they go on the road to Manhattan, Kansas to play the Kansas State Wildcats for legendary coach Bill Snyder's team. And they're 3-1. It's going to be a close one, but I think I'll lean towards the Baylor Bears over Kansas State in that one. Now we're going to go a little bit north of there, go up in Minneapolis, and they have another Big Ten matchup. I find it hard to believe. They still call it conference the Big Ten, but they got 14 schools. So I guess the Big 14 sounds a little odd. And of course, Big Ten, it's been around for ages and it sounds nice. So I guess they still call it the Big Ten. But anyway, we have a Big Ten matchup between the University of Illinois. They're from Champaign, that is. They're 2-2. And like I said, they'll be playing in Minneapolis versus the University of Minnesota Golden Gophers. Go Gophers. They're 4-0. I guess I'll lean towards Minnesota, the Golden Gophers, over the Fighting Illini. Now, our next pick will be back in my favorite conference, the best conference in college football. I do say so myself, and the stats speaks for itself. 14 of the last 15 or 16 national champions come from the SEC, dating back to the late 2000s. So you can look it up for yourself if you don't believe me, but I stand by my statement. Now, anyway, going back to the subject at hand, and like I say, it'll be the SEC game of the week on CBS tomorrow afternoon at 3:30 p.m. on the East Coast, 12:30 p.m. here on the Pacific West Coast. So that's the afternoon game. It'll be between the number 7 Auburn Tigers, a.k.a. the Kittens, for my classmate, Torrance Lynn Parker, who lives there in Auburn, Alabama, a classmate of mine and also an Auburn grad. Blah. They go down to Gainesville, Florida, to Florida Field, a.k.a. the Swamp, a.k.a. Bob Hill Griffin Stadium, to play the dastardly Florida Gators, who are also 5-0, and they're number 10. So that's a huge SEC matchup there. So it could have some implication on other teams, and also as well as their own standings in the SEC conference and their division. So with that being said, even though I'm not a big fan of Auburn, So I'm going, and also definitely not a fan of the Florida Gators because Georgia and Florida play each other every year. You know, the world's largest outdoor cocktail party. That's the old name for it. So, but anyway, getting back to the game at hand, I'm going to root for number 7 Auburn to barely get by the number 10 Florida Gators. And that's that. Now, moving right along, we're going to start our matchup for the Commander-in-Chief's Cup. That's a trophy that is given out to all the military academies between the Naval Academy, the Air Force Academy, and of course the before mentioned United States Military Academy at West Point. So the first matchup will be the Air Force Eagles, aka the Zoomies. They're 3-1, and they go on to Annapolis to play the Midshipmen of Navy, which is 2-1. Like I said, I have family members who serve in both branches. So, and this one, since I'm not a big fan of the Air Force, even though I have some friends and people who are Air Force veterans, and for all the Air Force vets as well as airmen out there, aka Zoomies, I'm going to go with my midshipmen for the Naval Academy over the Air Force Eagles. So, folks, we're going to take another break, and we'll be right back with Big Flim's Pigskin Picks College Football Edition here on Big Flim's Radio and TV.
Hey folks, this is Lorenzo Big Flim Fleming, the host and creator of Big Flim Radio and TV website. As you know, I am a host of 6 podcasts on Big Flim Radio and TV, designed for the general listening audience. Like I said, whenever you get a chance, check it out. Check out the website. Check out the online store for Big Flim Radio and TV themed products and little knickknacks and gifts for your friends and your family members. Like I said, you'll find it very interesting. I guarantee it. Like I said, the podcast covers news, music, talk. I wouldn't say news, but mainly talk about today's news and topics, as well as a channel dedicated to my fellow American military veterans, because I am a veteran myself. 21 years qualifying service in the Army and the Army Reserves, which includes 2 combat tours in Iraq and 6 months contingency operation tour in Kuwait. So I dedicate that show to all my fellow veterans and family members of veterans. So if you give a chance, hey, give me a chance. Give a listen. Check out the website at www.bigflimradiotv, that's one word, .com. Again, that's www.bigflimradiotv.com. I'll spell it out for you. It's BIGFLEM as in Mike, RADIO TV. And you can send me a tweet on Twitter with the hashtag FLEM, FLEM_radio. So like I said, give me a shot, give it a listen. And also if you want to send a request for a song or want to make a comment or criticisms about any of the podcast shows on Big Flim Radio and TV, go ahead. I like to hear from you. Send me a shout out, or if you want me to do a shout out for somebody, or if you want to do a dedication on a certain show, just send it to the email bigflimradiotv@gmail.com. Again, that's bigflimradioandtv@gmail.com, and put whatever particular podcast show in the subject line. For example, one of the shows you're listening to right now is Big Flim's Pigskin Picks NFL edition, as well as college football edition. Also, you can send the subject line. You can use My Prerogative with Lorenzo Fleming, Reflections, Rockin' Into the Night, as well as Lorenzo's Jams. Again, give it a try. Check it out. Listen to it. Tell all your friends and your neighbors and your family members, and even strangers. You won't regret it. It's Big Flim Radio and TV.
Flim Radio wants you to know that approximately every 51 minutes, someone is killed in a drunk driving crash. Buzz driving can also cause huge financial penalties with fines and legal fees. Friends, don't let friends drive drunk. Find out more at nhtsa.org. Gnarly, dude. This is Jess Bacoli. When I'm out hanging tin, catching the waves, checking out the chicks, and skipping Mr. Hand's class, I'm listening to Big Flim Radio and TV. Oh. Welcome back, folks. We're going to continue on with Big Flim's Pigskin Picks College Edition here on Big Flim Radio and TV. As I said earlier at the beginning of the broadcast, if you want to give a special shout out for your school, who you repping, or what school you graduated from, like I said, just shoot me an email at bigflimradiotv@gmail.com. Again, that's bigflimradiotv, that's one word, at gmail.com. Also, you can also put in the subject line Big Flim's Pigskin Picks College Football Edition. And also, you can send us a tweet on Twitter using the hashtag #Flim_radio. Again, that's Flim, F-L-E-M as in Mike, _ RADIO for radio. So you can shoot us an email or send us a text. Now, let's continue on with our picks for week 6 of the college football season. Now, our next pick, I kind of narrow it down to a local Georgia pick. Like I said, I don't think there's not too many fans of Georgia State, but I'm going to rep them anyway because they're there from my home state, based out of Atlanta, Georgia. You got Arkansas State, who are 3-2, come into Atlanta to play the Georgia State Panthers, who are 2-2. And of course, for those who really know me, I'm a big fan of Georgia sports at all different levels. Regardless of how they turn out, I'm going to root for the Georgia State Panthers to prevail over the Arkansas State in this one. Now, our next matchup is another Georgia team. And this one, I root sometimes, but a lot of times I root against them because I got a couple of classmates who are endeared to this team. And I'm talking about, and they know who it is. It's the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets, a.k.a. the broken down Rex of Georgia Tech. You know who you are, Roger Houston of Long County, Georgia, Little Wissy, and Brian Knapp, a.k.a. Spanky, the Napper, from Savannah, Georgia. They're big diehard Georgia Tech fans, and there's a couple others, which I won't mention. But anyway, they host the University of North Carolina Tar Heels there at Bobby Dodd Stadium at historic Grant Field, north of downtown Atlanta. North Carolina is 2-3. And of course, the Broken Down Rex, or the Rambling Rex of Georgia Tech, are 1-3. So I think their misery is going to continue this week with their debut head coach. So I'm going with the North Carolina Tar Heels over the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets, a.k.a. the Broken Down Rex. So sorry, Roger and Brian and all the Rambling Rex, a.k.a. Broken Down Rex fans. Sorry to disappoint you guys. But anyway, moving right along, we're going to the Big Ten again. Of course, with 14 schools, as I mentioned earlier. We have Northwestern, who is 1-3. They go into Lincoln. They go to Memorial Stadium to play the Nebraska Cornhuskers, who are 3-2. After that, and I wouldn't say embarrassing, but lopsided loss to the Ohio State Buckeyes, a.k.a. the Buckaroos. So hopefully they'll rebound from their loss to Ohio State and beat up on Northwestern tomorrow. Now we're moving to the Pac-12, also the Puke-12, and you will find out why I say that. We have the Arizona Wildcats, 3-1, traveling to Boulder, Colorado, up there in the Rocky Mountains outside northwest of Denver, to play the Colorado Buffaloes, who are also 3-1. So we're going to root for the Colorado Buffaloes to stampede over the Arizona Wildcats. Now, moving right along, speaking of the Ohio State Buckeyes, a.k.a. the Buckaroos, they got a major Big Ten showdown there in Columbus at the Horseshoe against number 25 Michigan State, the Spartans. They're 4-1. So And of course, for those who don't know, their quarterback transfer, Justin Fields, he was he was recruited by University of Georgia. He was hoping that he can emulate the same magic, coming off the bench and be like Jake Fromm, the current quarterback of the University of Georgia. But unfortunately, things didn't work out, and he got pissy and upset. So he decided to transfer from Georgia and go to Ohio State. And now he's doing a number there in Columbus, and making the fans faithful there. The number 4 Ohio State Buckeyes, aka the Buckaroos. So with that being said, I'm gonna have to root for number 25 Michigan State to pull the upset on Ohio State Buckeyes, aka the Buckaroos there in Columbus. So it's gonna be some heartbreak there in Columbus tomorrow night. So moving right along, we're going back to the SEC where we have the lowly 1-3 Vanderbilt Commodores going down to Oxford, Mississippi to play the Ole Miss Rebels, who are 2-3. Even though Ole Miss was sloppy when they played Alabama last week in Tuscaloosa, I'm hoping they'll be able to rebound at home and beat Vanderbilt tomorrow. And speaking of the Alabama Crimson Tide, Roll Tide, they're off this week. They're prepping up for next week's matchup in College Station, Texas against Texas A&M, but more to follow on that. So Alabama's taking a week off, so let them chill and watch. So anyway, let's move right along. The next game we're going to look at is the Duke Blue Devils. They're 3-1. They're hosting the Pittsburgh Pitt Panthers, who are 3-2. And I'm not a big fan of Duke in basketball, but I will go with Duke Blue Devils in football over Pitt. Now we're going back to the Pac-12, aka the Puke 12. We have California Bears. They're 4-1. They're going up to Salem, Oregon, to play the number 13 Oregon, the Ducks. They're 3-1. So they're heavily favored to beat Cal tomorrow. So I guess I'll go with them to go with the spread. So it'll be Oregon Ducks over the Cal Bears. Now we're gonna go, and then we're gonna continue in the Pac-12, aka the Puke 12. We got their cross-state team, the Oregon State Beavers. They're struggling this year. They're 1-3, and they come to the Rose Bowl there in Pasadena to play the woefully UCLA, University of California at Los Angeles, the Bruins, or the Teddy Bears, I call them. Because I have a friend brother, he's a graduate of UCLA, and plus he pledged into my fraternity, Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated, from UCLA, so I had to rag him on that. So I guess I'll go with the Oregon State Beavers over the UCLA or USAW Bruins, aka the Teddy Bears, tomorrow evening in the Pac-12, aka the Puke 12, and that's the reason why I call it the Puke 12 Conference. Moving right along, we have San Diego State, the Aztecs at 3-1. They go all the way to, what is that, Fort Collins? I think it's where Colorado State is located, at Fort Collins, Colorado. For Colorado State fans, please let me know, but I think it's Fort Collins. They play the Colorado State Rams. They're woefully at 1-4. So I guess I'll go with we're going to go with San Diego State to triumph over Colorado State. And we're just about ready to wrap this up with our last two picks for this weekend. We have the number 16 Boise State, the Broncos at 4-0. Like I said, they got that nice blue football field up there in Pocatello, in Idaho. And they going down to Las Vegas to play the UNLV, the University of Nevada, Las Vegas, the Running Rebels, who are at 1-3. So I guess I'll stick to my guns and I'll stick with Boise State over UNLV. And then, like I said, last but not least, as we wrap up this week's edition of Big Flim's Pigskin Picks College Football Edition, we go back to the Pac-12, aka the Puke 12, where we have the number 15 Washington State Huskies, go Huskies, with their quarterback, another former Georgia player, Jacob Eason. He was highly recruited by Georgia a couple of years ago, before the previous former coach got fired from Georgia. He went to Georgia. They had an 8-5 record, and then he got hurt in the season opener 2 years ago. And then Jake Fromm stepped up and then made history, or turned the franchise around, turned the team around, and take them to the national championship game, which we lost to Alabama. Yeah. But anyway, I digress. So getting back to the game at hand, Jacob Eason is now quarterback of the Washington Huskies, and he's doing pretty good. He put up some good numbers there from what I read and what I heard. And they're traveling to Palo Alto, California, in Northern California, to play the Stanford Cardinals. Well, I guess I'll have to go with Jacob Eason and the Washington Huskies, because I used to be stationed at Fort Lewis near Tacoma, or now Joint Base Lewis McChord. They're in the southern end of the Puget Sound, and I've always been a fan of the Washington Husky football program. So I'll stay with that, and plus I have affinity for dogs. Even though I wouldn't say I would call myself a dog lover, but anyway, I'm going with the Washington Huskies over the Stanford Cardinals. So, folks, we're going to wrap up this debut episode of Big Flim's Pigskin Picks College Edition here on Big Flim Radio and TV. And again, I apologize for the delays in putting out this episode. I know we're almost halfway through the college football season, and I have no excuse. But I ask for your apology, and I ask for your forgiveness. But make sure you tune in next week for another episode of Big Flim's Pigskin Picks College Edition here on Big Flim Radio and TV. Also, check out Big Flim's Pigskin Picks NFL Edition here on Big Flim Radio and TV. And, of course, check out the website. Check out Big Flim Radio and TV website. There's 5 other podcast channels, like I said, dedicated to music, talk, and veterans issues. So, without further ado, this is your host, Lorenzo Big Flim Fleming, about ready to sign off. And again, tune in next week. And goodbye, be blessed, peace and progress. Big Flim's Pigskin Picks College Football Edition is produced by Big Flim Radio and TV in association with Flim Media. The college football opening theme is a property of CBS Sports as well as the NCAA, National Collegiate Athletic Association. All rights reserved. Big Flim Radio and TV does not own the rights to the clips, nor do they profit from it. Who are you? We're Big Flim Radio and TV.